So now we're searching for the magic frequency.
What?
And we start with 100 hertz, and we look through the microscope to see if anything's happening. We watch for 5 minutes.
How do you see a sound wave in a microscope?
Nothing happens. We try hundreds and hundreds of frequencies, if not thousands, until we find the magic combination, and we think we may have found it. I have here 2 identical tuning forks, both tuned to the note A, the note an orchestra tunes to. These forks are both made to vibrate 440 times per second. We say their frequency is 440 hertz. If I tap this fork, putting little pulses of energy into it, the second fork will also vibrate in sympathy.
Congratulations! You've discovered what every composer and instrument maker has known for centuries!
And if I silence this fork, we just may hear the other singing its tone. We say that I'm inducing a sympathetic resonant vibration in the second fork. It only works because both forks are tuned to the exact same frequency.
Actually, it'll still work if the other fork is tuned to a harmonic of the first fork's fundamental. Try it yourself. You'll need a piano, a real one with strings, not an electronic. Hold down the damper pedal, that's the one on the right. Hit a note, say middle C. That's tuned to 262 hertz. Now that is the only note that is tuned to that pitch. See which strings the hammer hits. In all but the lowest notes, there'll be more than one string. Keep the pedal down and use your finger to stop those strings from vibrating. You'll still hear tones from other strings that are vibrating in sympathy. For example, high C, which is 524 hertz and an octave above it, will be vibrating. So in his tuning fork experiment, if the second fork had been 660 hertz instead of 440, it still would have been vibrating since 660 hertz is the second harmonic of 440. There's nothing strange or mystical about it. It's been understood for centuries. In fact, even back in the Baroque era, harpsichords and pipe organs were designed around just that principle. And both the concept and the mathematics behind it goes all the way back to Pythagoras. He goes on to make a big deal out of singers breaking crystal by singing the same note. I'm skipping.
On the other end of the scale, we have a giant bridge made out of concrete and steel, a suspension bridge, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge.
Moron! That's the Golden Gate!
Cars and trucks and buses are going over it every day. And unfortunately, where they built this bridge, there was a steady wind blowing across it.
These are all frickin' Lord Privy Seals! These guys don't even know the first thing about editing!
And one day this wind induces a small vibration in the bridge, hardly noticeable.
Still the Golden Gate.
But the frequency of the vibration matches the resonant frequency of some part of the bridge.
You know, it's not as if this footage isn't public domain. Here's old Galloping Gertie. Notice the hardly noticeable sway. So first off, this was before modern bridge building techniques. In fact, this is the reason for modern bridge building techniques. But what you need to understand to know what's going on is called standing waves. This is what happens when a vibration isn't allowed to continue on, but instead reflects back, in this case at the ends of the bridge. All along the way, these reflected waves sometimes amplify each other and sometimes cancel themselves out. That's what makes the standing waves. It's not the resonant frequency of some part of the bridge, it's how long the bridge is. Just like you can make a string have a higher pitch at the same tension just by making it shorter. It's how frets on a guitar work. And those frequencies originated not from anything fundamental to the bridge, but to the air currents going above and below it, creating tiny vortices that imparted unequal forces to the bridge.
So we search the US patent database, and we find this invention by a physician, Dr. James Bear of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's called a resonant frequency therapy device.
I'm just gonna cut to the chase here. He claims to be able to find a resonant frequency that kills cancer cells in a petri dish. Keep in mind, so does a flamethrower. Killing cancer cells has never been the hard part of cancer treatment. The main guy behind this is Anthony Holland, who is not a medical doctor and has no formal education in science or medicine. Red flag, he generally refers to himself as doctor or as a PhD without specifying that he's a doctor of music. Yes, he's a music professor, so he absolutely knows everything I told you earlier. His work is based on previous work, long proven fraudulent, by a guy named Royal Raymond Rife. He claimed to be able to cure disease with sympathetic vibrations, and this exact experiment, looking at cells through a microscope while playing a tone, comes straight from Rife. Rife and the cranks that followed him, which include Holland and Bear, claimed that Rife successfully cured cancer, but that the cure was suppressed by a powerful conspiracy headed by the AMA for no specified reason whatsoever. A lot of these Rife devices have been made and sold, none of them work, and a lot of them have been the target of successful civil fraud cases. In many cases, they convince the patient to stop chemotherapy and other treatments, resulting in greater suffering and death. These people are complete and total scumbags! And by the way, despite the fact that Nikola Tesla is mentioned several times in this video and gushed over by morons in the comments, Tesla had absolutely nothing to do with this.
So now we're searching for the magic frequency. And we start with 100 hertz, and we look through the microscope to see if anything's happening. We watch for 5 minutes. Nothing happens. So we try 101 hertz. We look through the scope for 5 minutes, and nothing happens. So we try 102, 103, and so on.
Wouldn't you have felt stupid if the answer had been 99 hertz? But anyway, notice that he's going up in increments of 1 hertz. A hertz is a cycle per second. But the second is a completely arbitrary unit of time. If this magical frequency does exist, who's to say it wouldn't be on a fraction of a hertz? In fact, if you look at the Tacoma Narrows bridge, those waves were way less than 1 cycle per second. In fact, it was 36 cycles per minute, which is 0.6 hertz. Do you see how these morons don't actually understand the first thing about what they're talking about?
Over the course of 15 months, we try hundreds and hundreds of frequencies, if not thousands, until we find the magic combination.
And what were your p-values? Because for p less than 0.05, you'd only need to try 20, even if the effect is just random. Color me unimpressed.
When we add the 11th harmonic, we begin to shatter microorganisms like a crystal glass. These are the first videos taken. We showed these videos to our friends in the biology department. They said they hadn't seen anything quite like it. Seems to be a new phenomenon.
Which should immediately make you suspicious, given how many harmonics we're exposed to daily, either with music or with electromagnetic waves or whatever. How often do you think we experience 2 notes 11 harmonics apart? Considering that these harmonics are always played with various notes depending on the instrument, why don't we explode from the sympathetic vibrations all the time? And if there were anything to this, do you really think the military wouldn't be interested in weaponizing it? And in fact, they put a lot of time and money into studying exactly that. Their conclusion? It doesn't work.
We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. So now we attack leukemia cells. Leukemia cell number 1 tries to grow a copy of itself, but the new cell is shattered into dozens of fragments and scattered across the slide.
Most likely what's happening is their destruction from forces from the vibration of the water they're in. And that has a lot more to do with amplitude than frequency. The frequency just has to be high enough that the wavelengths are smaller than the cell. And you gotta figure, he started out at 100 hertz. The wavelength of sound at 100 hertz is 3.4 meters. He should have known that was way too big to damage cells. But either way, if it kills cancer cells, it'll kill healthy human cells too. That's always the trick with cancer treatments. And that's really all they have to say. They did nothing whatsoever to establish that this will actually kill cancer, will be any kind of effective cancer treatment, and will be anything more than the fraud we've known it to be for almost a century. And this video has almost 12 million views. I shudder to think of the implications. That's why it's so important to do this, people. One question we skeptics always get asked is, what's the harm? And the answer is that the harm is very, very real and costs actual lives. So thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.